In this week's episode, we talk with SVN Associate Advisor Joshua Sheppard about the South Florida market and the intricacies of the marijuana commercial real estate industry. We hope you enjoy.
In Our Expert Opinion podcast is brought to you by SVN Saunders Ralston Dantzler Real Estate, a full-service land and commercial brokerage with almost $4 billion in transactions since 1996.
I'm certain that I have said this before, but I believe that we're over 4 billion in transactions now.
Mm-hmm.
You think so? Trillions?
Not
Maybe?
yet.
Maybe
quite.
not trillions. We're
Okay.
going that way.
We are going that way.
We'll do that.
Okay, welcome back to In Our Expert Opinion podcast. I am the co-host, which I was told to start saying instead of host, Linda, and my co-host, Chad Mills, who was finally on camera in our last podcast, is here with me.
Nah, you can have it.
Chad
And
deserves
you
some
just-
credit.
yeah,
No, just go back to host. You're good.
also, we have our favorite Michael in the studio and our other favorite Eli, too. So we have like a whole little crowd here today.
Entourage?
Eli's mullet is beautiful, I'd just like to say.
It is. I know. We need to get Eli on camera one of these days. Okay.
We should just have him run up there real quick.
That's right.
Shake it out for us.
Just do a little
Slow-mo
cameo.
mullet shake.
I'm going to do this during the beginning. So please subscribe, share, rate, review at
like,
SVN,
retweet, repost.
svnsaunders.com/podcast on Apple or Google or anywhere else you get your podcast. And I'll finally get to you. We have
The man,
the man.
the myth.
Is he a myth?
I don't
No,
know.
not yet.
He's here now.
Yeah.
No longer a myth.
Yeah.
In the flesh.
In the flesh, in the mustache.
Ron Burgundy.
Josh Sheppard. Or do you go by Joshua?
Josh.
Yeah.
A lot of my close friends call me Shep.
Do you watch Southern Charm?
I do not.
There's a guy on there. His name is Shep.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first time I saw that on the Monday morning meeting, I was like, oh my gosh, Shep Rose is on our meeting. Like, did he join? But even better, it was you. I was going to say, but it was
Yeah.
just you. But even better, it was you.
I'm going to name my
Good
kid
save.
Shep. Shep Sheppard.
Shep.
He's going to be a NASCAR driver.
Oh, then you won't have to work at all.
That's goal.
This podcast will be
That's the goal.
obsolete. It won't even matter.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going to have him listen to this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you are an agent here at
Yep.
Saunders Ralston Dantzler. And how long have you been here?
Just about, let's see, a year and a half, almost 2 years now. So
Really?
fairly
What?
new.
I just said 3 months.
No. I'm a little more. I'm still a rookie.
You're not as green
Sort.
anymore.
Not as green.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you are on the land side.
Yep.
Okay. And why are you in land? Because
Well-
where were you in residential?
I was before I started here. I dabbled in residential, but I actually am well, I guess I am land side, but now I'm starting to dabble in the retail side of things. And that's particularly because I'm working with a few dispensary companies and things like that who are looking for, commercial sites.
It is, yeah, we need to get into the dispensary
Sure,
thing.
yeah.
I typically don't talk about illicit drugs on this podcast, but I do have a lot of questions about that. But
Yeah.
anyways, we'll get to that. And so most of our agents at SRD are in Polk County.
Mhm.
But you are not, because we
Nope.
are expanding, as we've talked about on this podcast several times before. But so where are you?
I am all the way south. I think I'm the furthest south agent here. At the
I think
company.
so.
Don't
Um,
remind me.
Yeah, Chad has to drive 3 to 5 hours anytime he has to put a sign up.
Yeah.
But luckily he's got a place to crash down there, right down in
Eh.
Boynton. But I live in South Florida. I guess Jeff Cousins is sort of south, but I don't think he operates in Dade County or anything like that. So I try to cover, kind of straddle the Everglades between Southeast Florida and Southwest Florida. There's a road called Alligator Alley. It takes about an hour and a half to
I've
get over
driven
there.
many
Yep.
times.
Yep. So yeah, I figured.
Don't ever break down on that road
No.
because no matter what cell carrier you have, you will lose service
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Every single time. I'm like, please don't let me run out of gas.
Uh-huh.
Please don't let me get a flat tire.
And it's all sawgrass. There's no gas
Yeah,
stations.
there's nothing.
Yeah.
There really is nothing. I used to drive from Davie to Fort Myers, and that was
Mhm.
obviously the quickest way to get there. Terrifying road though, because
That's
I mean,
nice.
if you crash,
Scenic.
it is beautiful, but
Yeah.
it's like people go 100 miles an hour on that road.
Oh yeah.
So you got to arrive alive is the name of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So is Alligator Alley or 60 worse?
60 is scary because it's
60
two
is
lane,
scary because it is 2 lanes only.
and people go just as
Yeah,
fast.
they do, and they will pass.
Yeah.
So maybe 60 is scarier than Alligator Alley because you can at least get over, you
Yeah.
know, down there. But 60 is also a nice drive. Why am I talking about this? Let's get back to what you do. The Everglades, though, I mean, is there really much property?
Well, so yes and no. Obviously, there's a huge chunk of the state that's untouchable,
Yeah.
the Everglades. So you really have these corridors where on one end you're bordered by the Everglades, and on the other end it's the ocean, right?
Yeah.
Which is a good thing and a bad thing. You know, there's only a limited supply of land down there. Certain counties like Broward really doesn't have any land left. There's essentially one large acreage parcel. I think it's probably 760 something acres maybe. This guy was an old hog farmer, and that's really the last haven of land, and he's already sold off a couple pieces to some of the larger national developers. So that'll probably go at some point in the future. And then, you know, Miami, people think of Miami as a big beach city, big downtown area, and it is, but Miami might as well be its own like small state. It is humongous. The county's huge. So on the southwest side of Miami, you have Homestead, you have
The way that you
Kendall,
just said Miami was...
Miami? Did I say Miami?
Miami.
Yeah.
It sounded almost
See?
like...
That's
Yeah.
just it's Miami. So anyways, on the southwest side of
In
Miami.
the local tongue.
Yeah.
I can't understand his dialect. I don't know.
It's that South Florida.
I
dialect.
know.
You have Homestead, you have the Redlands, you know, you have Hialeah, Kendall, and there is a lot of land out there. It hasn't pushed west so much from, you know, it seems like in the south part of the state when, you know, the urban service boundaries, they're all east, right? Everyone wants to be by the ocean, right? The further east you go, the more expensive things are. But there's only so much space, and so things are gradually starting to move and take up what's left over. So, you know, there is a lot of opportunity. In Palm Beach, you have you know, quite a bit of ag land. I think the Department of Agriculture does an ag census every 5 years. The next one comes out next year, and Florida agricultural county value, the two largest counties in the state are actually Miami-Dade and Palm Beach. And
I don't know what any of that means.
yeah, so I mean, there's a huge sugarcane industry down there, obviously.
Okay. Well, you say obviously. But...
Well, I mean, if you
Very
were to,
obvious, Linda.
well, I guess not. Yeah, I guess you wouldn't know. But if you drive 27, if you go look around there, you just see U.S. sugar. You see sugarcane fields as far as I can see. So
what did you say was coming out next year?
it's an ag census.
Okay. What is that?
It's like they do like a 5-year. It's basically like a snapshot
Okay.
of Florida agriculture.
Okay.
I can share it with you.
Thanks.
I'll send it to you after the podcast.
Thank you.
My notes.
Thank you.
So yeah, you know, and you know, obviously we drive a lot for this job. You know, land is not always immediately in your local community. So I drive a bit, but we cover everything from really kind of like the whole southeast edge of, you know, I'd say Martin, St. Lucie, Palm Beach, you know, Broward, not really Broward actually, because there's not much there in terms of land. Commercial is a different story. And then Miami-Dade. And then I partner up with another guy at the company, Bo, and he's further north in the Jupiter area. So, you know, he kind of covers some of the stuff north, and then I go out west sometimes over to Lee County, Lee and Collier. so that's kind of my territory. But
Yeah.
I don't mind the drive down there. It's nice.
That is a lot of ground to cover, a lot of
Yeah,
land to cover.
it's an hour and a half, 2 hour drive
Yeah.
anytime. As long as you avoid traffic, you're good.
I see all these Instagram like car crash like
Oh, yeah.
camera things, and they're usually down there.
And 95. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so whenever you are like prospecting or I guess like scouting, what type of properties are you mostly like looking for?
Well, I've kind of, since I started here, I kind of wanted to, I guess you could say, get a feel for different types of properties.
Yeah.
Right? Initially, I started in land. So I look at a lot of residential development pieces. I don't operate a lot within the actual farm space, right? So like large, any type of like row crop or, huge citrus. We don't really have a lot of citrus down there. You go up to Indian River, you start to get citrus. So I don't really work too much in the farm space, but residential development I will work in, industrial I'll work in, ranch recreational I'll work in, and then most recently I've been involved in this kind of nursery cultivation side of things, which has now led me into looking at the retail side. So I'd say, what'd you say? Cannabis, correct. Yeah. So yeah, I think when I focus on some of those properties, it kind of depends on what some of my clients' needs are. Right now, we're working on a deal with a cattle ranch in Okeechobee. This was the first cattle ranch I've worked on, but it's a great operation. It's super cool to learn about it. The guy is a former, or I guess he is an MLB star, and so it was really cool to meet him. And I think we're right on the cusp of it. We're pulling the buyer in here, and so that was a totally different ballgame. I had to learn a little bit more about cattle than I understand now. I do know a bit, but it's just one of those things where you get on a project and you're like, well, I guess I should dive in and learn the industry. So
yeah.
So this isn't transitional land. This is an operational
cattle farm,
and it is going to be left as a cattle farm.
It's exactly.
Well, you kind of do a little bit of everything because some of your land is transitional if you're getting into development, especially residential. But as far as like an operational ranch farm, whatever it is, I have no idea about any of that. So that is very interesting. And I feel I am really surprised that there are properties like that in South Florida.
Well, that's more, I guess what you would consider the southern part of the state. Almost, I guess it's almost central, but it's like Lake Okeechobee.
Yeah.
Right?
I know a lot of the guys around here go to Lake Okeechobee to do some hunting or something. I don't know. I guess you would spend a lot of time in the car, almost as much as Chad.
Yeah, maybe not quite as much.
I feel like Chad gave me this impression that you guys were like best buds. I didn't even know that Chad knew who you were.
Speaking of duck hunting, he bought a duck boat from me.
Which
was actually for gator hunting. But
which we did get 2 gators with.
Yeah. Sketchy, but got.
Why was it sketchy?
It didn't have a plug, and it didn't really float without a plug. I had to take
boats don't float without all the holes sealed up.
A cork and some duct tape, but it worked out great.
Are you joking?
No.
What kind of cork?
Like a wine cork.
He had to drink the bottle of wine before he could plug it.
Chad included that in the
sketchy.
sale of the boat. He just was like, here, take this bottle of wine. When you're done with it, save the cork.
Homemade wine.
Yes.
Made in the garage. Just,
hey,
bud, you're going to need this for this gator hunt.
So funny. I was talking to Chad. This is like even a couple months ago. And I was like, oh, we should get Shep on the podcast. And he was like, well, he's going here this weekend. He's doing this next weekend. And I was like, do you guys know each other? And Chad's like, yeah, we know each other. And I was like, okay, whatever. Chad knows everybody though, so I guess I shouldn't be that surprised.
I saw how good he was at putting signs in the ground. I was like,
I got to get to know this fella.
I got to get to know this guy.
So it was right when you were heading out on your elk hunt, and she was like, hey, should we get Josh in here to the podcast? I was like, no, he's about to go on an elk hunt. Okay, what about the week after that? I was like, he's gone to you were going to do something else
Yeah.
around the same time that you were going to be out of town for. I was like, no, he's not going to be back in town until this date. She's like, okay, well, we've already got some lined up for that week.
Yeah.
So we'll have to push it back.
That's always how these like last couple months of the year are for me. It's always, you got a wedding one weekend, you got something this next weekend, then it's the holidays, and then by the time the holidays are over, you're like, I just don't want to. I just need a weekend. To not do
Yeah.
anything.
No, I totally get it.
But
Um,
glad I'm here.
so yes, I'm glad that you're here too. Back to it. Whenever are you working with any sugar
No.
properties?
No.
I
No.
feel like that's a really tight knit, like,
Yeah, and it's there's not a lot of players in the sugar
Yeah.
business.
there's one.
Basically.
there's one in
It's not too many,
particular.
but yeah, there's one in particular, but no, not really.
How did you end up in South Florida?
So I went to school at UCF for finance. I was going to go into the finance field, and I decided, well, I was thinking about moving out west, and I had brothers that live in South Florida. I had been coming down to South Florida to visit, fish with them and stuff like that, and I loved it down here. So I said, well, I'll go down there and try it out. So I moved down after school, and migrated for family and stayed for work, and I got a job. So in a previous life, I was working in startups. So I had joined a company. My father was in aviation for the entirety of his career, and I had always been, brought up in it. I really liked it, and I joined this startup that was kind of trying to transform aviation, specifically by utilizing, private aviation and underutilized capacity and all that stuff. So that did really well. They got acquired, and then I went to another startup that was doing samples for design and construction materials. So like if you get a hardwood sample, and then they ended up having some capital funding come in, and they ended up, I left them, I exited, and startup space is really cool, but it's I don't want to say it's necessarily political. It's just a different thing, right? I've always loved the outdoors. I've always been, I go hunt and fish and hike and all that other stuff. And my friend had worked here, and he was like, "Why don't you come, try and get involved with some land?" I was like, "Well, I don't know, And then finally, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna give it a try. So I decided to do it, and I love it.
Yeah, it is a good fit. I feel like you very much like mesh well with that side of, it's like, I feel like everybody who does land, they're always, hunting or fishing or whatever. And I feel like it just like makes sense,
It's easy when you're passionate about,
Yes.
the outdoors.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And your job is getting boots on the ground and going, it could be even if it's a transitional property or whatever it may be, you're actually out in the field. It's really cool.
Well, in Miami, Dade, wherever you are, I feel like there is a huge market for the residential development.
There is.
So I would think that you're going to be the number one guy.
There is
down
a big
there.
market. There's they're not making any more land, and more people are coming to Florida.
Everybody's coming to Florida or
crazy.
Texas, whatever.
Yeah. So we'll see. There's been a little bit of a slowdown, I think, in terms of a lot of developers are their sentiment on the market is kind of, things are changing and shifting, and whenever that happens, people kind of pump the brakes a little bit. Before, everybody saw how crazy the boom was, kind of like right after COVID and during COVID. But yeah, it's an area where they are they're gonna run out of space, and it's gonna go vertical.
Yeah. Well, it has to. Miami Beach is already all vertical.
It all goes vertical. And eventually I think it'll start moving north. It's like you can't, Miami, unless you move out west, like I said, to, some of the other areas out there. I think eventually things will start to move north and north.
And there you'll be.
Yeah.
You'll be there waiting.
I just keep going north. Who knows, maybe I'll end up here one day.
Yeah. No, but I think that there is, when I think of South Florida, obviously I specifically think of Miami, and I'm like, there is
Hmm.
no land there. But, you know,
Yeah.
west and north, I think you're in a
Yeah,
good position there.
there's a lot. There's some aggregates down there as well.
Mm,
So there's a pretty good bit.
yeah.
Um, so it's it's I feel like it's kind of um, I feel like it's kind of a small world,
Yeah,
and down there, if you're operating in the land side of things, everybody kind of knows each other.
I would think
So
so. Yeah.
yeah,
I do want to switch though to
sure.
something that you talked about a little bit earlier, and that is your dispensary
Hmm.
clients. Um, I have been I have worked with landlords who had prospects come in that wanted to retail, that it never worked out to put a dispensary into these centers. One of the main reasons was it's still a Schedule One drug
Hmm.
under
Federally.
federal law,
Yep.
and a lot of property, these like owners that have mortgages on their centers.
Hmm.
In the mortgage, there is some sort of term saying that they will not have anything illegal going on site. Um, and so I think that a lot of my property owners have been very hesitant to put a dispensary in for that reason, because then the mortgage people can call it doesn't matter. The point is, I have not been able to successfully put a dispensary in any of my centers
Hmm.
because I think it's people are scared about it. So
You just need a good attorney.
I don't know one.
Always good idea to have a good attorney.
Actually, funny enough, attorneys are also scared to get involved because it is still a Schedule One drug under the federal law. That would mean that an attorney is committing eh, they are doing something illegal. So attorneys are very hesitant to get involved as well. Um, we don't want to be disbarred. We don't want to lose our licenses. We don't want to be suspended. So if you find a marijuana attorney, I would probably stick with them because I think that eventually there will be a lot of them. But as of right now, there are not a lot because I don't even know that you can get uh, liability insurance. I don't know because we don't know what's
Yeah,
going to
it's
happen with it. And I know that the Biden administration has, said that they're not going to prosecute, certain offenses relating to cannabis,
hmm
devil's cabbage, whatever you want to call it.
the devil's lettuce.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, so it is a very convoluted and interesting space right now. State by state, it is drastically different,
Okay.
right? So federally, it's not recognized as a legal substance right now. Depending on who you talk to,
Hmm.
um, they will tell you that it's going to at some point in the future, or I think predominantly who you talk to, they say it's going to at some point in the future. I think what changes is the timeline. So that presents a lot of issues when it's federally illegal, when it comes to banking, like you mentioned, insurance, like all these different things, right? So there is a medicinal use for it. And that's where we're at right now with Florida. So in the nation, there's, I think, 39 states now that medically have it legalized, 19 states that have it recreational. Um, in Florida, it's just medically legal. So if you want to, or if you need to, should I say, use cannabis, you would, get a doctor's prescription, and then you can go to the dispensary site. So yes, it's a gray area, I guess you could say, when you get on the federal topic. But in Florida, it's pretty cut and dry, and Florida's done a really good job with it so far, saying this is what's allowed, this is what we're doing. You can have a MMTC license, which stands for a Medical Marijuana Treatment Center. So there's 22 of those that have been issued in the state of Florida. They're all vertically integrated, which means we don't have somebody who's cultivating and then wholesaling it to a dispensary or anything like that. If you have a license, you are the only party that's allowed to grow it and sell it, which is very valuable. They say, arguably Florida is one of the most valuable licenses in any state. So I think that like the starting bid for a license right now is, somewhere in the range of 40, 50 million.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah. So there was actually just recently a company.
A license?
Correct. Yeah.
Who does that get paid to?
Well, so just recently there was a company called MedMen that sold out to another organization. They acquired all of their holdings, the license, everything like that. It was a $63 million acquisition. And part of that is also due to the fact that these licenses are unlimited. So essentially you can have, tons of retail locations. And it's a very select, limited pool of players in the market. It's kind of like, it's like almost like a casino, right? Like not everybody can run a casino. But if you have a special license to, right, if you can do it on this particular property, it's a great business, and it's proven to be. So there's a couple really big players in the state, Trulieve being the biggest. They have majority control, I think probably over 50% of the market. But it's kind of, if you look at how fast these dispensaries are popping up throughout the state, it's kind of a land grab, right? There's only, there's certain stipulations when you put in a dispensary. You can't necessarily be across the street from a daycare, right? Or a school or place of worship, things like that. So there is only a...
What's so great is every church I've ever been to, there's always a bar across the street.
Yeah, right. Well, who knows? And maybe in the future that'll, think times are changing and maybe there'll be a dispensary across the street. Who knows? But there's only, there's not, I don't imagine there'll be more than 10, 15 dispensaries in a city, right? So people are trying to stake their flag, so to speak, early and right now.
Are they buying or are they only leasing?
No, so they buy.
Okay.
Yeah, so they'll buy these spots and or lease it, but they'll buy these spots and make the necessary renovations to bring it up to their code. There's all these codes that you have to follow when you go through this industry.
I've heard that it's hard to lease a space if you're in cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear it from me just now?
Yeah, very.
Okay.
I heard it's good to have a good cannabis lawyer too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Guess we need to find one of those. I actually know one. He's in South Florida.
Do you?
Yeah, I'll send you his contact. Yeah. He's like he does all of these talks and everything now. He's like very like...
You should have him on here. He probably...
I know he was supposed to come to Lakeland
technical.
and I haven't heard. Yeah. And I was really interested.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting space. I'm a believer that we're in the midst of a almost like what the prohibition was back in the day, right? Where times are changing. If you look at the polls, I think it's the majority. I want to say it's somewhere in the realm of 75% of voters don't really have any sort of objection towards the use of marijuana, right? Mm-hmm. It's like an alcohol. And I think that in the future, what you're going to see is that it's just going to become a substance that'll be regulated, obviously. Just like alcohol is, you have to be of a certain age to buy it, things like that. But I think, our kids are going to be looking at it like we're looking at the prohibition being like, that's crazy that they outlawed alcohol for X amount of years. They're going to be looking at this industry like that. And so it's exciting to be kind of at the tip of the spear for that.
Well, yeah. I mean, I did read about, and I want to say, and I did write it down, it's called Marijuana Real Estate Investment Firms. And I read about one, and I don't remember the name, that raised something like $100 million.
Just to be like a REIT? Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
I guess so.
I think that's...
And they were, the capital, I mean, 100 million.
There's a lot of...
Now that you've said that something sold for 63 million, I mean, that's...
Yeah, it's a huge, huge industry. I mean, and Florida is one of the top states in the nation for it.
Okay.
We have, I think we do over, I want to say it was like 1.2 billion a year. you're gonna have to fact check me on those numbers, but we have a huge. The industry is very big, and they're projected to potentially double it within the next few years. The reason being is that there's a lot of pushback on the state for them kind of holding these licenses to only 22 people. So they're supposedly releasing 19 more licenses here, which would effectively double it.
Because I would think that would create almost a monopoly. But I do understand. I mean, it's the same thing with like a liquor license. Sometime, and I know it kind of maybe it's county by county, state by state. I don't remember, but there's essentially only so many liquor licenses that are issued, and basically, if they run out, they run out, and you have to go,
Right.
buy somebody else's. Very. I don't totally understand how that area works as far as how it's fair or not.
Well, I think a very important thing is that they want to make sure they're doing it right.
Okay.
They don't want it to be a free for all kind of thing. And I think that's probably the right way to do it. They have gotten a lot of pushback and have been criticized for kind of holding those licenses to the number that they are now. Maybe they could be quicker in expediting the approval process and things like that. But it's they're trying to just be very methodical in how they do it, which has worked out pretty well so far. I mean, if you look at it, these licenses are super expensive, and people who have the opportunity to get into this field are actually doing it. It can be very, very lucrative for them. But I think as the years go by, True Leaf is sponsoring a bill to effectively legalize it on a recreational level. So I think it's 21 and over is the ruling.
In Florida.
Correct.
Or okay.
Correct. Yeah. They are, it kind of comes up every few years, but it seems like this one's got a lot of momentum behind it. So it could very well be that in our lifetime, or should I say in the next 10 years, it'll be recreational in Florida. What the industry will look like then, it might be, it's hard to say, there might be a lot more of these kind of, cannabis related transactions in real estate going on. There'll definitely be a ton of other businesses that are ancillary to the industry, right? Whether it be from a packaging perspective, things like that.
Yeah, I would think that would fit all of your boxes as far as industrial, ag land, retail.
Yep.
You'll be the guy.
Maybe I'm sculpting this whole.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right. Don't tell everybody all your secrets. Yeah. On a personal note, if you smoke and you do it around me, I'm going to rip your head off.
I don't.
I do not like smoke in my face. I don't care what people do.
Yeah.
I really don't care what people do. The moment, if it's a fire, if it's a cigarette, if it's a vape, whatever it is, gets blown in my direction, I'm rioting. I hate.
Do you?
My eyes immediately just shrivel up like little raisins. And it's like, it's not even that I hate, it's my eyes.
I'm surprised you hang out with Chad. Doesn't Chad
No,
hit
I'm
the
kidding.
vape pen all the time?
It's the RAM key.
Chad one day was
funny.
sitting on the floor in Michael's office, and he has this like RAM key, and he has it up near his mouth, and I went bananas.
Right.
I went insane. And Chad's like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "I will snap it in half if you do that around me."
And I handed it to her, and she's like, "This is the key to your truck." And I was like, "Yeah."
But I'm like, "Why are you sitting there like vaping your truck key, you weirdo?"
Yeah.
So anyways, I'll just snap a little vape in half or a cigarette or something. I don't know. That's just a personal note.
Good.
Just
Noted.
Everybody needs to be aware of that. It's my eyes. Please.
I was gonna take you out to get some cigars after this as a thank you, but I guess not anymore.
Dean would appreciate you taking him out for cigars.
I did see Dean one day here late in the office. The company next door, they were hanging out, smoking a cigar. I think it was on like a Friday afternoon.
The funeral home?
No.
Oh.
Oh, no, they weren't hanging out by the funeral
Oh.
home.
I was like, oh God, that's
no, it's like
rough.
out back in the
That's
porch
funny.
area.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Meeting of the minds.
Yeah, he likes to do that. So then now that, you're kind of in this space, do you think that you will like continue to focus on that, or are you nervous about it at all? Because I mean, are these companies not nervous to be prosecuted?
I don't think so. No. I mean, I think if you just look at the trajectory of the nation and what's been happening in this industry, I think just like what I said before, I think that it's just a matter of time
Yeah.
before it becomes a recreational thing. I mean, almost half the states have it recreationally legalized. So I think people are looking at it more so without fear. Obviously, you want to be very thorough in how you set up your operations and how you go about your business. Make sure you're obviously compliant. But I think they're looking at it with more so a kind of gold in the eye. I think they
Yeah.
realize that the earlier you get into this space, potentially the more profit you'll make.
Yeah. And so, are you, when you're working with these clients, they're in South Florida, or are they looking to go north, or kind of
Well,
where are they looking?
that's something. So, I do think I'll probably be working a bit more all over the state, which
Okay.
is totally fine. I currently have a listing that is in Miami, which is convenient for me.
You can say it the way you want to.
Miami.
Miami? Yeah, it's in Miami. And it is
Barely.
What was that?
Barely in
Barely.
Miami.
Yeah, barely. It's out there. But if I get an opportunity to work with one of these other large MMTC players, and they're looking for something in another part of the state, I think that's not necessarily about, hey, this is my territory and this is only what I focus on. I think it would be more so like, hey, this is my industry.
Yeah. Like, I'm the
I'll fly
expert
there
here.
if you
Yeah.
need me to,
Yeah.
right? Or set up shop for a month, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Just for a distribution standpoint, they would want to be all throughout the state. That way, if they do get dispensaries opened, then
Right.
they only have to transport 100, 200 miles versus coming all the way from the southern point of the state. I mean, our state's 800 miles.
Right. So there is
Like-
there is 100% that element to it. And then there's also an element of like, if it's already like this one, it's already a turnkey facility. It's a cultivation facility. So, they could service this huge growing market that is in South Florida and Miami. There's a I think the sentiment there is the user base is probably larger than a lot of other parts of the state. So it definitely makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's also, you have to look at it because Miami, you might be paying a premium. Certain cities, you might be paying a premium because of the location, right? If it makes more sense for you to set up shop in a part of the state that isn't necessarily as convenient, that's all up to the company and
Yeah.
their
Location.
Well, I would
Situs,
think if
situs,
there's
situs,
only
yeah.
if there's only, so many licenses, then, these companies will be able to expand, I would think, quicker than usual, just because they might be in need more, So, well, good on you.
Yeah,
You're
I'm excited about
creating
it.
the path here.
Yeah, I mean, I've learned a lot since I got into this space. I've had a couple people that I'm able to kind of tap into
Yeah.
that have been really good resources for me, who have a very insider perspective, and they also know the gossip of what's happening and what's.
Well, I'm all about gossip, so if you ever want to include me in that call, I'm good.
No, but just kind of the churning in the market.
Yeah.
So it's been really cool to learn about it, and it's exciting because it's a new industry.
Yeah.
And we'll see how things pan out with it. I don't think that the medical space is ever really going to go anywhere at this point. But it has the opportunity to even grow more. So, I'm going to pursue it and see if I can't stake my own flag.
That's
maybe
right.
One day.
That's right. That's right. Okay. Well, how can people get in touch with you?
Email me, call me,
Okay.
407-399-1120, josh.sheppard@svn.com.
Okay. And I always ask people this question, but you might not, because you're not always in the office, but who is your favorite staff member?
Aside from Dean, no, I'm just kidding. I mean, I love Dean, but I don't,
Oh, no, he's an agent. He's a broker.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
ask you who
true.
your favorite broker is, but who's your favorite
Oh,
staff?
staff member.
Yeah.
Oh, Chad maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. I was gonna say that might be Eli now because he's got that mullet. I think it's cool.
Way to go, Eli. We're gonna give you this
I'm
one.
gonna, yeah.
We're gonna give
relegate.
this one to Eli.
I'll relegate to
Yeah.
Eli.
And now,
Heck
who
yeah.
is your favorite broker?
Let's see. Maybe Zeb.
Zeb.
Zeb, shout out to Zeb.
Zeb.
I don't know. Zeb's great.
Yeah.
I like Larry a lot. Larry, I sat next to Larry right when I started for a long time when I was coming to the office a lot more. And Larry would just hang out and tell me stories.
Larry is my favorite agent.
Yeah, Larry's
He
great.
is the best.
He's got a bunch of cool stories.
He has lived so
Great
many lives.
stories.
Like, just
he really has.
he's the best.
Yeah. He was telling me one time he was like hiking in the French Alps or something with like the creator of Dell. I don't know. It was something really wild. And I was like, what? Yeah.
He is so funny. The stories that he tells, because he's so, he's just kind of like hanging out, and then all of a sudden he's like, "Yeah, I knew the creator of Dell. I knew like this prime minister. I did this,"
Yep.
and I'm like, "Larry,
Yeah.
what?"
He's like a retired James Bond, I think.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
is. He is. Okay, well, thank you for coming on. I'm glad
Yeah.
that your bestie Chad could clue me in whenever you were available, and I guess we'll be seeing a lot more of you with your
I hope so.
marijuana dispensaries or whatever it
Yeah, we'll
is.
see.
But I hope everybody learned something, because I still don't know what
very,
I'm doing. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.
Thanks, Josh.